"Get in the house, you're turning blue," the rancher said, throwing his coat over them. The storm rolled across the Wyoming plains faster than anyone expected, swallowing the late autumn afternoon in a swirl of white. Most folks had already shuttered their windows and stoked their fires. All except Maya Carter, who had taken a wrong turn on an unfamiliar back road and now stood stranded beside her lifeless car, her phone reading no service like a final verdict. Her fingers trembled as she tried the ignition again. Nothing. The wind slapped against the car door with a force that rattled her bones. She didn't know where she was, only that her lungs burned with cold every time she drew in a breath. She stepped out, snow already up to her ankles, and shouted into the empty world, "Hello? Anybody?" Only the wind answered. She wrapped her arms around herself. She had promised her parents she'd be home before the storm. She'd promised herself she'd be braver on this trip, her first solo drive across the state. Now, as the world turned white around her, she wondered if bravery was just another word for foolishness. Just when the fear began to push tears into her eyes, a faint sound broke through the roar of the wind, the low, rhythmic thud of hooves. A horse. Out here. Maya spun toward the noise, squinting through the snow. A figure emerged. Broad-shouldered, tall, wrapped in a weathered coat and atop a chestnut horse whose breath steamed into the bitter air. The rider slowed, eyes narrowing as he took in the stranded car and the shivering young woman beside it. "You're a long way from town," he said, voice firm but not unkind. "My car died," she managed. "I can't get any signal." The man studied her face, pale, lips edging blue, and didn't hesitate. He swung off the horse in one practiced motion, striding toward her. "Get in the house, you're turning blue," the rancher said, throwing his heavy coat over her shoulders before she could protest. The warmth hit her like a blessing. I don't want to be a bother," she stammered, though she clutched the coat tight. "Ma'am," he said, gesturing toward the distant outline of a house barely visible through the storm, "I'm not about to let someone freeze on my land. Come on. We'll worry about your car later." They made their way toward the ranch, the snow blurring the world into a silent, white curtain. The rancher shielded her from the wind, guiding her step by step. When she faltered, he steadied her with a quiet, "Almost there." Inside the farmhouse, warmth enveloped her instantly. A fire crackled, filling the room with the scent of burning pine. The rancher, whose name she learned was Luke, poured her a mug of hot cocoa so rich it felt like velvet in her hands. "You were out there in just that thin jacket?" he asked, shaking his head. "Storm like this doesn't care how tough you think you are." "It wasn't toughness," she admitted softly. "Just bad timing. And I guess I didn't want to ask anyone for help. I always feel like it's weakness." Luke paused, leaning against the counter. "Asking for help isn't weakness," he said. "Refusing it when you need it, that's the dangerous part." Something in his voice struck her. It wasn't lecturing. It was lived experience. A moment passed before she noticed him rubbing his hands. His shirt sleeves were dusted with snow. He had come for her without gloves, without even thinking of himself. "You're freezing," she said. Luke chuckled. "I've been colder. Besides, you needed the coat more." She looked at the coat around her shoulders, far too big, smelling faintly of saddle leather and pine. An unexpected warmth bloomed in her chest. They talked as the storm howled against the walls. Luke told her about the ranch, how he'd inherited it young, how winters were unforgiving, how the land taught him to look out for others because out here, sometimes strangers were all you had. And Maya told him about her road trip, how she was trying to prove she could handle life on her own, how she feared getting lost, not just on the road, but in general. Luke nodded thoughtfully. "Funny thing about storms," he said. "Sometimes they blow you off course just to push you right where you needed to be." Hours passed. When the storm finally eased to a soft whisper, Maya walked to the window. The world glowed under a pale moonlight, peaceful now, reborn. Luke grabbed his coat, still draped around her shoulders, and paused. "Keep it," he said quietly. "Consider it a reminder." "Of what?" "That there's always someone willing to help. You just gotta let them." The word settled deep inside her. Simple, unexpected, but profoundly true. When morning came, Luke helped her jumpstart her car and mapped her a safer route home. As she drove away, coat still warming her shoulders, Maya glanced in the rearview mirror. The rancher lifted a hand in a quiet farewell, already turning back to tend his land. For the rest of her journey, whenever doubt crept in, she touched the coat and remembered the night when a stranger crossed a storm to save her. Not because he had to, but because compassion still existed in the quiet corners of the world. And from that day on, Maya promised herself this. If she ever saw someone lost in their own storm, she would be the one to step forward, to offer warmth, a guiding hand, or simply the kindness she now knew could change a life. Sometimes, the smallest act of generosity becomes the moment someone finds their way home.